Most of my research focuses on how different agricultural conservation practices can reduce nutrient and sediment runoff from fields into nearby streams and rivers.
And I study a group of contaminants called PFAS, or per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. I study aquatic ecosystems, and specifically I'm looking at how PFAS enter the aquatic food web and then transfer between different organisms.
My research focuses on developing a catalytic membrane made out of polymers embedded with palladium nanoparticles. This catalytic membrane treats oxidized contaminants found in drinking water. It is important to treat these contaminants since they are widespread in all of our waters and they can cause several affectations to human health, such as baby blue syndrome, and could be precursors of cancer.
I study the impacts of different conservation practices in agricultural watersheds and how these practices can reduce nutrient loading and pathogen and antibiotic resistant gene loading into surface waters.
I study ionic liquids. One thing that ionic liquids have been shown to be able to do is participate in directional solvent extraction. What we're particularly interested in is in extracting fresh water from salt water, so leaving behind concentrated brine and affording fresh, pure drinking water.
So I'm working on polymer membrane fabrication. There are some ligand that has very high affinity towards specific contaminants. So we want to functionalize this ligand on our membrane so we can remove the contaminants in water by absorption-based polymer membranes.
Most of my work revolves around a toxin called tetrodotoxin that's produced by newts and salamanders on the west coast. What I do is I look at insects that are resistant to this toxin called caddisflies. In their larval stage, they're aquatic and they eat the eggs of these newts, and I compare the genomes of resistant populations and non-resistant populations to figure out exactly how the resistance happens, basically.
Our research is focused on microplastic degradation in the environment caused primarily due to UV irradiation. And we're looking at how microplastics degrade in terms of how quickly they degrade, what byproducts are formed, and what factors affect the degradation process.
I study the Indian Ocean and its associated atmospheric counterpart. And the reason why this is so important is because what's known as the Indian Ocean Dipole and the Indian Walker Circulation are the main drivers of rainfall in the areas surrounding the Indian Ocean basin, such as Africa, India, Asia, and Australia. Because a lot of these countries are developing and underdeveloped and highly reliant on rainfall agriculture, understanding how this has changed over time and how it will change in future scenarios will be really important for the well-being of these nations.
I'm currently researching a directional solvent extraction, as we are taking salt from brine and maybe even seawater and moving it to a new solvent called an ionic liquid. I personally work at the actual benchtop, working with this ionic liquid as well as many of the analytical machines we use to characterize them.
My current study focuses on mathematical modeling of membrane processes for water treatment, and specifically we are doing simulation work to decide the experimental condition for characterize the membrane performance before we bring it into industry.